do you maybe have heard about Martin Fowler? And Martin Fowler have an amazing graph that said that the people try to code really fast in the beginning of a project and don't put a lot of interest in quality, but at the end they come to an end with a project with bad quality, and that means slowness in the process of development.
Hello, welcome to the Watermelon Podcast. I'm Esteban Vargas, your host, and today we have my friend Diego Prieto. Diego, what's up? How's everything, my friend?
Esteban, thank you for this amazing invitation. I am really emotionated to be here in this podcast.
Diego is a genius programmer. He's going to talk to us about code quality, automated code quality review with SonarQube. SonarQube is part of SonarSource, and today they announced a huge round of funding, valuing them at $4.7 billion. And Diego is gonna tell us what all this is about. But before diving deep into this, Diego, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am a software engineer 7 years ago. Currently, I'm working in Voyager, that it's a cryptocurrency company. And in the other hand, I am teacher. Actually, I am teacher in the Escuela Colombiana de Ingeniería Julio Garavito here in Bogota. And I am master in software engineer from Andes University and Open University in Barcelona.
Nice. You're doing a ton of stuff, my friend. Congrats. You also have a course on automated code quality inspection on SonarQube. That's what we're going to talk about today. And let's start with the basics. I don't know what you want to explain first, but I'm going to ask like two questions at the same time. What is SonarQube and what's automated code quality inspection?
Well, actually, as you mentioned, both questions are totally related. SonarQube is a tool to automate static code analysis. And it's important to understand that find a bug in the early stage of the development process is really important, because almost 2.84 billion trillions of dollars are wasting in solving bugs in the software nowadays. So with SonarQube, you could automate that quality process or trying to understand which bugs, vulnerabilities, technical debt, for example, coverage of code, and another important metrics about quality in your source code base to solve it and to improve the quality, and at the end deploy into production code and a product with almost no bugs.
Okay. Let's get into the details. Is this a CI/CD tool? Is this a linter? Is this something else? A cloud container? Is it a mixture of stuff? What is SonarQube like? What shape does it come packaged in?
You could divide SonarQube into a stage. This is not a CI tool, could be part of a complete solution of CI. And let's start describing SonarQube. There are two important parts. The first one is the analysis. And when you analyze your code, you make an static analysis. That means that you will not execute the code. And on the other hand, do you have the quality attributes that you want to evaluate in your code? That is, for example, how maintainable is your code? Is good or is bad? Maybe people here have heard about a metric that is called cyclomatic complexity, that it's a number that say to you how much is the complexity of a specific function, of a specific, for example, class, if you are working with Java, for example. And on the other hand, you have the non-functional attributes that it's important about your code. So for example, what is the flexibility of your code? What is the coverage of their code? What is the duplication code? Well, this is important because the maintainability is totally related to the duplication of the code, because if you have to change the same code in multiple parts of your code, you will come to an end with bugs. And if the coverage of their code is bad, that means that any change could break any function that you have. So it's important to have almost 80% is recommended of coverage in all the code. And when you have that, it's not a linter, because it's more greater than a linter, because you have a history. With a simple linter is really specific in that point of the time. But with SonarQube, do you have the history of the quality of your code in the year, in the time have you code. And then you could use a CI tool, for example, Jenkins, to integrate SonarQube with this. So how could be the normal path to integrate SonarQube in your code bases? After you, for example, create a pull request and you approve that pull request and merge in master, automatically the continuous integration tool start to make this analysis in SonarQube. And SonarQube has a concept that is called quality gate. And the quality gate is a bunch of concepts and metrics that you define to decide if the code have the quality that you want or not. So for example, you could specify that if the coverage of testing is lower than 80%, that will not pass, and the developer has to come back, create another pull request, solve that problem. And it could be increase and create new tests, and then run again the SonarQube analysis. And at the end, you will have in production a code that is well tested, that have low code duplicated, and have an amazing technical dev. That is one of the most important things, because when you're a developer, one of the most important things is maintain low the code debt, because it's a debt. You have to pay that in some moment in the future, and sometimes that will imply these amazing ciphers of dollars that I have said you.
Awesome, awesome. And let's be very clear about what this is. It is not a replacement for your unit tests or end-to-end tests, but rather it will force you to push code that meets a certain code coverage, like number, a threshold, for example. And in addition to that, it will be measuring certain metrics, such as cyclomatic code complexity, which would be great if you could explain at better detail, so that you don't have code that overwhelms the developer. Is what I just mentioned an accurate description or not?
Yes, Esteban, has you mentioned something that is important, that is integration and unit testing. Not SonarQube is not a tool to replace that. SonarQube is a test to analyze which code is being executed during your unit test. Why? Why we are going to say that we want 100% of coverage? It's great, but is in a huge project is not something that will be possible to do, because that could be imply a lot of testing cases. But do you want to test the components that are important? So do you want to identify in your company, in your project, what is the most important component and increase the test in that component? It's a metric that you could not see with a linter. It's a metric that you could see with a normal unit test. It doesn't matter the source code, JavaScript, Java, any other language. Do you want to use SonarQube to understand the history of the quality of the project? That it's something that the companies and the developers nowadays doesn't have in front of their eyes to take decisions, to say, hey, I complete this ticket, I complete this new feature, but the quality of my code is low now. The maintainability of my code is low. The scalability is low. The technical debt has increased. The coverage has decreased. That is important because the quality is impacted. Do you maybe have heard about Martin Fowler? And Martin Fowler have an amazing graph that said that the people try to code really fast in the beginning of a project and don't put a lot of interest in quality, but at the end they come to an end with a project with bad quality, and that means slowness in the process of development. But if they put attention in the quality in the first steps of the project, at the end they will come in with a project that will be easy to maintain, and that means easy to put new features on this new project, and that means that the business could evolve quickly with the new things that the business is demanding. So it's important to put quality from the beginning, and SonarQube will give you the history of that quality during all the time of the project development.
Okay, this Martin Fowler concept leads me to my next question. You mentioned that something that's very true that happens in the industry. When you start a project, you're just trying to figure things out and you don't care much about quality. And as the project grows and evolves, you care about it more. The question is a very open-ended question, and it is, when should we be thinking, or when should we add SonarQube to our projects? At what point in the whole life cycle of the project should we be adding it?
Okay, SonarQube is a really easy tool to start up. So my recommendation is as soon as possible, but the configuration is really easy because you have only a file that is a properties file that you set up in your project, and then you could run this with, for example, if you use GitHub, you could run the Sonar analysis with GitHub Actions. It's really easy. So there is no reason to not include SonarQube in the first stage of the project. And if you are, for example, let me give you an example of my previous company. When you create a new repository in GitHub, automatically the setup of the new repository contain all the structure to run SonarQube, continuous integration, continuous deployment, all that DevOps stuff that it's sometimes a little boring to set up for the first time. But when you create a repository, automatically that everything is configured for you. So there is no reason to include SonarQube from the beginning. But the most important of SonarQube is not only set up, but take the moment once a week, maybe once a month, to read the report and understand in which point of the code, in which point of the components, there is a technical debt that need to be solved. And with that in mind, you could define tickets to solve that problem. But you have the report gives you the specific lines, the specific problem that need to be solved. So for example, could say to you, hey, you are using this function that you have defined here, have a complexity of 10, that it's a lot because the medium complexity of the project is 5. So it's a good opportunity to refactor. Of the code duplicated has increased to 50%, and the average have been only 5%. So it's a good time to define functions, refactor the code, and use common functions instead of duplicating the code. That is the point of SonarQube from the beginning of the project, and using the history to analyze, take decision, and improve the technical dev. Give you a strategy to solve the technical dev. Not only something that it's abstract in the mind of each developer. No, it's really concrete. The technical debt is here in this point in the line of the code.
Give you a strategy to pay off technical debt at the beginning while you complement it with other tools such as linters to keep code legible. Awesome. And I have another question. So what happens exactly when SonarQube or SonarSource reads like your code? Like what is static code analysis? What happens exactly? Do they store your code on their servers or not? What happens when this tool is reading and analyzing your code base?
Okay, SonarQube could be installed in your own server if you want, or there is another cloud solution that it's pretty new, like 3 years ago. And how is the process? SonarQube will read your code and will compare the code that you are writing with a common base syntactic, well-defined metrics that it's common, is for common access from everyone. So for example, we'll say to you that in Java, when you define a switch, it's a good practice to use break at the end of each case. It's something that SonarQube could say to you. And then try to find bugs, vulnerabilities, something that it's called code smells, and say to you things that you could fix. That is the first part. And the second part is that we'll read the coverage report that the unit test, the output of the unit test, and we'll try to understand in which part of the code there is a lack of coverage. And finally, but most important, is the duplication of code. We'll try to identify a block of codes that is duplicated or lines that is duplicated in your code and say to you, hey, it's a good opportunity to refactor this thing and improve the quality and the complexity of your code. Then SonarQube join all this information and provide to you an amazing dashboard with the quality and with all the metrics that you could analyze. As I say to you, not only in a static point in the time, but in the history.
Awesome, awesome, Diego. This is very amazing and very interesting stuff. I want to install it on the Watermelon repo now. As you know, we're open source, and these kinds of things are very useful to generate legitimacy towards the developer and a better developer experience overall. So you entice me towards it. Thank you very much. And along those lines, I want you to tell people about your Udemy course. Is it Udemy, right? Where can they find you? Who is it aimed for? Tell us about whatever you want about your course, please.
Well, this course has been an amazing path. It's, as you said, in Udemy. This link that is actually in this moment appeared in the screen. It's the link to be accessible to the course, will be free for all the people that is seeing this podcast in this moment. And please feel free to reach out to me in the Udemy course or in my social media. I will be glad to talk with you about quality, SonarQube, and software architecture stuff.
Okay, you got it over there, folks. Check out Diego's course. Diego, thank you very much for coming here. It's very valuable for us. Thank you very much for giving us a discount to your course. And we'll stay in touch, my friend. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
See you later. Bye-bye.